which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have before us now the approval of our agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the motion to approve our agenda has been approved. Before us now is the approval of the minutes of our regular business meeting of January 28th. Is there a motion?
Move approval of the regular business meeting of January 28th, 2020.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. And the motion has been approved for our minutes. Now in our meeting, this is a time for public participation. This is a time for our public to address the board regarding agenda items or any item of importance to them. If you wish to address the board, please present yourself to the podium and state your name. Seeing no movement, we will go forward with our superintendent's report, which involves our student achievement reports.
Thank you, Mr. Kozire. At this time, we are going to have a presentation by Dr. Vorthman, our Chief Academic Officer, on our winter administration of the MAP assessment. We are really pleased with the work that's going on in the buildings, and our students are really taking hold of the MAP and using that as a tool to encourage them to continue to grow and achieve, and really the work that our teachers are doing. So this will be our second winter, is that correct? And so we are really excited about this report. So Dr. Vorthman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Merlo. It's my pleasure tonight to provide you an update on the winter 2020 measures of academic progress results for mathematics and reading. Before I begin tonight, I want to take a couple of moments just to provide an update on a few other academic achievement points that we've received in the last couple of weeks that I think illustrate the way that progress is being made in the Council Bluffs Community School District. First of all, you may have noticed that every school in Council Bluffs was rated in the top 4 categories on the most recent Iowa State performance profiles that were provided by the Iowa Department of Education and used for federal accountability. And this is really a big deal because as we look back at the rating system that's been around since 2015, this is the highest that our schools have ever been rated. In fact, this is the first time that the schools in the urban, among all schools in the Urban Education Network, the largest school districts in the state of Iowa, Council Bluffs is the only school district that does not have any schools that are labeled as priority or needs improvement. So that's really a great step forward for our school district. And there's more. We just finished up our last literacy screening, which we do 3 times a year as required by the state of Iowa. And if you recall, we have been screening our students in grades K through 6 for fluency since 2014. When we first started our very first assessment of literacy screening, our students scored in the mid-50s in terms of the percentage of students that were at or above benchmark. And most recently in our winter screening, 75% of all students in Council Bluffs in grades K through 6 scored at or above benchmark. Yeah. That is a huge victory.
Dr. Vorthman, is this the FAST assessment?
Yeah, so
okay.
The FAST assessment was the assessment that we used to use. We now use MAP, but it's correlated exactly the same.
Okay.
We did our own correlation studies, and we also used the correlation studies from the Department of Ed to show last year what would happen if we made a switch to MAP, and we had exactly the same number of kids that scored at benchmark last spring on the MAP and on FAST. So we know that it's a reliable screening instrument. What this data shows us is that our focus on literacy is making a difference. The fact that we moved to a spiraled curriculum with a comprehensive program 4 years ago is starting to pay dividends for us, as those students who started with us in kindergarten are now fourth graders. And so we have almost an entire elementary cohort of students who've experienced the same sequence curriculum all the way through their elementary school years. And so we're very proud of the work that our teachers and principals are doing every day to make sure our students are reading on grade level. So great celebration.
So sorry, don't mean to interrupt. Department of Ed does not dictate that we administer FAST.
No, they dictate that we use an approved screening instrument,
Okay.
of which the MAP test and the FAST test both qualify.
Okay. Are we using FAST?
We are not.
No, okay. Thank you.
So the encore tonight is the winter 2020 MAP results. And if you recall, we have three data points related to our first goal of improving student achievement. The first one is to make sure that 80% of our students are scoring at the average, high average, and high levels on the MAP assessment in reading and mathematics. The second target is related to growth, and that is 60% of our students meeting their individual growth targets from one testing period to another. And if you recall, that target was increased this year from 50% to 60% because we met that goal 2 years early. And then the third target is 100% of our students demonstrating some growth during each testing period. And all three of those goals and targets are focused on accomplishing them by 2021. So we're still a year out from where we want to be, but we wanted to provide you a regular status update. We look at this data in really two big buckets. The first one we look at as performance, and that is how students are doing compared to all of their peers. And that is, we look at the percentage of students who score in those top three bands. Then we also look at how are students growing or making progress between testing windows, and we call that MAP growth. And we look at that in two different ways. Individual student targets. So after each individual testing cycle, a student is provided with a target that is based on their own performance. So every student is different based on how they answer the questions. And it's predictive in terms of students just like them, how much the MAP says they should grow during before the next testing period. And then we also look at any growth. So how much growth are students making between the testing periods? They're not making all of their growth target. Are they showing some growth between testing periods? So that gives you some context for the data that I'm going to share with you tonight. So first, in mathematics, we had a 3.3% increase from fall to spring, or from fall to winter. And if you saw this presentation during the community town hall meetings, I said that this is exponential growth. And it really is, exceeds what we would expect. What we look for in a given academic year is about 1 to 1.5% improvement throughout the entire course of the school year. And what that does is it gives us nice, steady, sustainable growth year after year. 3.3% in a testing window, so from basically 12 weeks, it's outrageous. And so what it shows us is that our students and teachers are really digging after those individual growth targets and making sure that they're using the learning continuum and identifying where students need additional support and pushing them to that next level of student achievement, because 3% in 12 weeks is enormous growth. You can see on the chart that I have up here, this looks at it by grade level. So we can see where our highest performing and lowest performing grade levels are. And as an average district, as an average, about 55.6% of our students scored at those top three categories. Our highest level was in kindergarten and grade 5 and grade 10 in mathematics. And our lowest were at our transition points, which has historically been the lowest points, lowest grade levels on all of our assessments, whether they are the Iowa assessments or our MAP assessments at 6 and 9. And we know that those are areas that students struggle as they move from the elementary test to the secondary test, and as they make that transition from 8th grade into 9th grade. This next chart shows the change in percentage of students scoring in those top three categories from fall to winter by cohort or by grade level. And the district average, you'll notice all the way at the right-hand side, the 3.3%. The blanks just to the left of it are students that graduated last year and are current seniors who are not tested. You'll notice that we had improvement from fall to winter at the highest levels in kindergarten and grade 2, and all of our grade levels except 6 and 9 made improvement from fall to winter. Another great celebration. When we look at math reading, you're going to see a little bit different story, and we'll talk a little bit about why we think that is different. This chart shows the growth of students meeting their individual growth targets. Our goal is 60% by 2021, and we met that goal in mathematics another year early again. We had 61% of our students on average meeting their individual growth targets in 2020. So we're going to have to think about what does that mean for the upcoming testing periods. MAP encourages us to set that target at 50%. We've already taken it to a stretch goal of 60%. We've met that goal. And so we have some thinking to do about how we're going to continue to push toward meeting those individual growth targets. The highest levels of growth of students meeting their individual growth targets is at elementary, which that makes sense because this is a scaled assessment, meaning that as students go up in grade level, the ability for them to grow gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So in high school, for example, a student's growth target may be 2 points improvement because the scale just continues to shrink. About 65% of elementary students met their individual growth targets, with 56% at middle school and 52% at high school. And this last chart in mathematics shows the percentage of students who made any growth during those testing periods. And on average, as a district, over 76% of all of our students made some growth between those two testing windows. And when I say all students, that means every single one. All students who are in general education settings, English learners, special education students, and gifted students. We test them all. So this does not exclude any student in our school district from this assessment. Our highest level was in elementary, where 91% of all students in grades K through 5 made some growth during that period. And it's a little bit lower at middle school. It dips down to 70% at middle school and 54% at high school. So next we're going to turn our attention toward reading. And in reading, we had another fabulous testing window, 3% improvement from fall to winter. Again, exponential growth. We're seeing about 3 times what we would expect to see during a testing window. And we believe that this is attributed, just like the math is attributed, to just staying the course and implementing our curriculum with fidelity. And I know I've said that many, many times, that our focus is on core instruction and making sure that kids have access to a guaranteed and viable curriculum with good materials. And we are seeing that that is starting to pay off, staying the course and making sure that we have good materials in the hands of our students and teachers. If we look at a district point of view, the district average is all the way at the end, and we had 62.5% of our students that scored in those top 3 categories. This is the highest it's ever been in reading. And you notice that it's about 7% higher than mathematics. Our highest grade levels were 8th, 10th, and 11th. So a little bit different story than in mathematics, where we see some of the largest percentages of students that are at elementary that are in those top 3 categories. It kind of shifts in reading over to our secondary schools. And this is similar to what we saw on the ISASS test. If you remember, our state assessment also showed the higher percentage of students showing proficiency was at our secondary schools. Our lowest is at 2nd grade, and I've given you this explanation before, but we know it's true. At 2nd grade is where students transition from the K2 test to the 2-5 test. So it's much more rigorous, and by the time that they get to the winter test, they're performing better than they did in the fall. And I'll show you how we know that. This is the change by the cohort from the fall to the winter administration. And you'll notice that great big spike there on the left-hand side. That is the change in students scoring at those top 3 categories from fall to winter in 2nd grade. So they get that first administration in 2nd grade of, we call it the big boy test in reading, and they really start to fly by the time that they get to the winter. And then by spring, they are flying and they're ready for the 3rd grade test the next year. You'll notice that the largest change was not only at 2nd grade, but we also had a lot of change at 5th grade and 10th grade. These were grade levels where the average change was over 6%, which is an enormous amount of growth in one testing period. Interestingly, you'll notice that sixth grade is positive. And this is the first time we've seen sixth grade go from losing ground at winter to making up ground at winter. And we believe part of the rationale for this is that, once again, we have the materials and the curriculum that's spiraled that goes up through sixth grade in reading. And students are starting to move into middle school who have had that type of instruction for several years prior to coming to middle school. So we're hopeful that this is a trend that we continue to see year after year. In terms of growth, the percentage of students that met their individual growth targets in reading on a district average was 57%, just slightly below our goal of 60%, but 7% over our original goal of 50%. So we still have a little bit of work to do to get to that 60% by next year, but we're well on our way. You'll notice that the highest grade levels were at kindergarten, second grade, fifth grade, and eighth grade. And our lowest were our transition years, sixth grade and ninth grade. And then lastly, tonight, I wanted to share with you the percentage of students making any growth in reading from the two testing windows. Our district average was 71% of all of our students made some growth during those 12 weeks. Our highest was at elementary, where 85% of all of our students made some growth between fall and winter. Dipped off slightly at middle school at 62% and 52% at high school. So I know that's a lot of data in a really short period of time, but really there are three kind of big key points that I would hope that you would take away from tonight. First and foremost, our fall to winter testing really saw some accelerated growth and quite frankly surprised us because it was above and beyond what we expected to see. And it really shows that there's great things going on in our classrooms, and the instruction that our students are receiving, that our principals are helping lead, is really making a difference. Secondly, more students are meeting their individual growth targets than ever before. To have over 60% of our kids hit their individual growth targets the second year of MAP testing is phenomenal. And lastly, the needle is moving on academic achievement in Council Bluffs schools. We are excited by our progress, but we know we still have more work to do, and we are committed to making sure that all of our students are hitting their individual growth targets, that all of our students are making growth from one testing period to another, and that we hit 80% of our students scoring in those top three categories. At this point, I would answer any questions that you might have about the MAP test or FAST testing or the school report card.
That was a tremendous presentation that we have. Members, I'm sure that you have questions, and we'll just open it up. If you have a question, just let us know.
Dr. Horthman, could you go back a few slides?
Sure, which one?
The one where seventh grade was below, was right there. Do we know why seventh grade? We've looked at these previously, and it's always the sixth and the ninth that it kind of sees that dip, but this time it's seventh grade?
This is the change in proficiency.
Right.
So it ended up being about 1.6%. So in the scheme of things, it's not a whole lot. But what we will wait to see is what spring brings us. And we are also looking in our middle schools and our high schools at bringing in a new spiraled curriculum for next year that will look more like our elementary curriculum in that it provides more structure and guidance because we know that's something that we need to do in secondary language arts as well.
And also, I might add that 1.6%, the building principals can drill down and they know exactly who that is.
Right.
And have conversations with the teachers in the classroom to see what supports we can provide to assist those students.
And they're still about 60% proficient, looks like. So the first slide, or somewhere on that first slide, we had mentioned this during the community forum about that goal of 80% by 2021, and seeing how good growth each year is 0.5%. How do we go and achieve and go at it and not be disappointed by that if we fall short? I'm just curious. I know. I mean, yeah, 3 each quarter, and we'll be there.
Yeah, we expect 1.5 1 to 1.5%. But we also know that when we have achievement that is at the level it is right now, we have to make exponential growth. Our growth has to be accelerated. And what we're seeing is that's happening in our school district. It's not just something we talk about accelerating the growth of all learners. It's something that we have the data to prove. And while it makes me nervous to see 3% between a testing period, it helps us meet that goal of 80%. Because we have school buildings and classrooms that have hit 80%. That's why we have to keep the number high.
That's right. You always want to stretch goal and always want to believe. And the reason I think Dr. Borthman keeps talking about being nervous is we're going to level off sometime. So he doesn't want everybody to think that we're always going to see 3% or higher growth. But our students are demonstrating how capable they are of achieving at high levels. And that is something we're celebrating and our teachers are celebrating because remember, this is that launch point to having all children be able to enter those pathways and leave with that second credential. And this is showing you that our students can.
So the high schools are a struggle, it seems like, in growth in math and reading, right? They're somewhere in the 50s, high 40s to high 50s. And I know we've talked about some rigor and curriculum changes and things like that, and grading changes and all these things. But I mean, it seems like if we're going to make an impact someplace, they could drive that up significantly. It would be in those three classes where our kids are, struggling more, I would say. Anything we've thought about kind of along those lines, or what we see in high schools and why they're? I mean, I know it's harder to grow, but is there something we're lacking there where they're not getting what they need to be grown?
Well, I think one of the things, I think I already mentioned it, but we realized a couple of years ago that the math curriculum that we were using probably was not meeting the needs of as many of our learners as we had hoped for. So we made a transition. We reinstituted the more of a traditional math sequence and adopted materials that are more rigorous and more engaging for students. And I think our results show that we're starting to see some of the benefits of that. If you look at this chart here, the percentage of students who are in those top two categories, 11th, 10th, and 9th are all above 50%. And are 3 of the 6 highest of our grade levels. So we're showing some progress there. 2 of our 4 highest grade levels in reading are at high school. And we know that we have improvements to do there. We're undertaking those right now. So I think our principals work every day with our teachers and our grade level teams to make sure that they're using this data to diagnose what they need to do in their individual classrooms. And we use it as a dipstick to make sure that our curriculum is doing what we think it should be doing. And that's why we have this data to make those decisions.
And Dr. Worthman, also talk a little bit about the work they're doing in MOAC and collaborating with the other school districts in our area around good teaching in math.
So in mathematics specifically, the Metro Omaha Education Consortium, which is Council Bluffs plus all of the Metro Omaha school districts, have been working for the past 2 years and really digging into how to provide students a rigorous math experience in high school. And our teachers have participated in that at both AL and TJ, and Vetter, our math curriculum specialist, has kind of led the charge on that. They brought in national consultants to look at the instruction, the resources that classrooms are using, and they're getting ready to kind of culminate that next month in some lesson studies where they'll be bringing the national experts to our classrooms along with teachers from across the metro area to do lesson studies and look at the depth of rigor and instruction that's actually happening in our math classrooms, and then receive feedback so that we can get to even deeper levels of implementation of our mathematics curriculum.
We talked about a little bit about this at one of the town hall, in one of the groups I was in at the town hall meetings, and someone brought up the idea that high school students may have different attitudes towards assessment. I don't know if there's any truth to that or how we would even know if that's true. But I'm sure that to a certain extent, that's true, and, you know, something that is showing up in the numbers.
And you'd also mentioned at the meeting, the committee meetings about kind of how the cohorts are decided amongst MAP, and that might be good for folks to understand kind of what that is. You know, when you say students like them, what does that mean? So,
So if I'm tracking your question correctly, so the way that MAP works is it's looking for kind of the sweet spot of finding a student's level of performance. And the way that they identify how much a student should grow is they look at all the kids who take this assessment across the nation. And they identify at a certain performance level, where do students from across the United States perform at compared to that student. So if that student scores, say, a 203, their RIT scores a 203 in reading, they know that students who score at a 203 typically grow 3 points between testing periods. So that's how they set individual testing goals, and that's how we know that what we're doing is providing a rich education, just like compared to all of the rest of the students who take the MAP. It is by far the most popular assessment across the United States for interim dipsticks. And we feel really confident that the results that we get will help guide us and guide students and teachers to making good instructional decisions.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Had an opportunity today, my professional engineering group monthly has a meeting, and this month's was on contract documents and making sure that you keep your project files up to date, and in case there's an event that occurs, that you have all of the supporting documents that would allow you to be able to defend your position. One of the things that they talk about is that if you know that you've got a problem area and you're not, you haven't addressed that area, that lends you as a professional to be in a vulnerable position. And my question then, looking at from that perspective, is that we know historically that transitional years are the toughest years for our students. And we talk about if it's something that we know about, well, then we could be negligent. We could be grossly negligent if we're not, from a professional standpoint, if we know that's a problem area, what are we doing to help our students, our teachers, our coaches, and our principals with the supports to help them through those transitional years so that they can flourish and so that they can meet their targeted goals and not be left in a position where we are negligently forgetting to look after those most vulnerable students during those transitional years.
Really good question. And I don't think anybody has solved it yet, unfortunately. You look nationally across educational data, and you will see the exact same thing in school districts across the United States. But that doesn't excuse us from not doing something about it. We implement teaming at middle school, which wraps supports around every child. We make sure that every student has a caring adult and advisor, both in middle school and in high school. We have graduation coaches in every one of our buildings that provides intervention services for students, that make sure that we track them, make sure that they're getting the supports at school that they need. We have social workers that work with individual students and families that are struggling to make sure that if they have supports outside of the home that are impeding them, that they get what they need. We have attendance monitors that go and make sure kids come to school every day. And I could go on and on and on. Yeah, summer school, our LIFT programs, both our zoo program and our high school LIFT program that provide kind of a jump start for kids going into the freshman year so that they get into their high school early and understand what the high school experience is. I don't think it's one thing. I think it's everything. All of those things contribute to helping stem the decline that we see at transition years, because it's hard being 13
Oh.
and going from a day where you're with 24 of your best friends every day, and one teacher is a mother hen and making sure that the flock is all together, to being one of 750 that are in a grade level. That's hard. And it's hard being 15, going to high school, and you're trying to now fit in with all of the 1,250 kids that are in our high schools. And unfortunately, we have those transition points in our school district, and our job is to manage them the best that we can so that kids don't fall off the tracks.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the map assessment tool help us guide our teachers with resource materials that will help them present the material to the students in those additional resources that the students have access?
It doesn't
How do we
necessarily-
utilize, I guess, how do we utilize the diagnostic tools that the map assessments afford us as a district?
So it's not necessarily about pairing materials with individual student needs as much as it is identifying where they're struggling instructionally, so that they can use the materials that we have to design something specific for a small group of kids, or in some cases, an entire classroom of students that may be struggling with the same thing. And that's where our teachers spend time in their professional learning teams with their colleagues and with their principals, looking at the data and identifying where are they getting the biggest lift by focusing on one subject or one topic or one set of standards. And we provide training for them throughout the school year, especially at Summer Academy, where we bring the folks in from MAP to help us identify which reports work best for which purpose that they want, which questions they have that they want to have solved. And they use the product called a Learning Continuum, which shows all of the standards that students are supposed to master in an individual school year, and how their students, every student performed, and then it groups students together. So here's all the students who scored at this level, and here's all the students who scored at this level, and then it tells, here's the things that you should focus on to take them to the next step. So it really does a nice job of providing kind of that real-time information about how I should tailor my instruction to the needs of individual and groups of students. But at the same time, it also provides kind of that big picture of maybe where we're struggling or where we need more support. At a district level, we pull the MAP data at the end of the school year for all of our students, and we get a report that shows where the strengths and weaknesses of our curriculum are. And then we make decisions during the summer to tweak things, just like we did last summer. We saw that we had some areas where kids were really struggling in elementary math. So we moved some things around in our curriculum map to make sure they got to some concepts sooner because they were tested sooner. And those are the types of, I would call them continuous improvement type of activities that we engage in to make sure that our curriculum is relevant and that it's meeting the needs of all learners.
Very good growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Congratulations to
exceptional.
you. And
Our teachers are doing a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Borthman. Presentation time?
Yes, we have the next item for our presentation is the transition to Blackboard for parent mass communication.
Yes, thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Ostrowski to join me at the podium. She's going to present tonight to the board a little bit about why the change and to highlight some of the changes. So, Ms. Ostrowski, the floor is yours.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And just as Dr. Worthman is excited and passionate about students' growth, so are Daniel and I, but we're also excited about parent communication. Diane Ostrowski and Daniel Stinman is the communications coordinator, and we are partners in crime, if you will, in our outreach, not only to our parents, but our entire community, to tell our story of all the great things happening in the district. So tonight, we're here to share a little bit with you about a planned change upon board approval next meeting of our parent notification system. To put that into context, we have all these tools that we use to make sure we are telling our story and communicating and engaging with our community. That we have our Peach Jar e-flyer system that emails to parents flyers of importance about things that we're doing in the district, outside activities they may be interested in, as well as our newsletters. We have our mobile app that brings a lot of the information in together in the palm of their hands. We have our website. We have all of our social media platforms that we use: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram in some cases, and YouTube, of course. And tonight's meeting is broadcasting live on YouTube, for example. But what we're going to talk tonight about is our parent notification system. And this is the system that some people might call the robocall system. And we have been using School Messenger, which is a very fine product. We've been using that for 10 years, and it has worked very well for us. What we're suggesting that might be the next best step for us is to move to a program called Blackboard. Blackboard is the same organization that we have our website platform as well as our mobile app on. So when we talked with our technology department, so a combination of technology and communications, we took a look at what would be some of the advantages to moving to a new product. And I'm going to go through just a few of those with you tonight. One is more of a streamlined data sharing, because we use our PowerSchool data and in some cases our staff data, and we integrate those in with the notification system in order to create those lists to be able to distribute information personally too. We're also looked at timeliness and efficiency, and you can see this graphic on the right. It really is kind of showing the create once, publish everywhere. We can create a message, for example, no school tomorrow due to weather. We can create it once, and we can almost simultaneously push it out to parents through voicemail, text, email. We can put it on social media, on our website, and we can send a push notification to our mobile app. So, you might get the information several different ways, but here's another neat part about it, is that parents will have a chance to say, this is how I want to receive my information. I want to receive text messages. That's my best form. I'll see that more quickly. Parents can also opt out of receiving some of the information if they'd like. Again, it's their own personal preference. Before, with our product, we had to have parents opt in. And oftentimes we found that parents didn't take the time to opt in, so they might have missed out on an opportunity to get a message in a particular way. Also, this allows multiple languages. And currently in our district, we have about 18 different languages that we're meeting the needs of our students and families. A couple examples of Vietnamese, Mandarin Chinese, and Tagalog. I wanted to say that correctly. And those are just 3 examples, but just as with our app, you can set, as a person, you can set your language preference. And that's really important, that parents are getting the information in a language that they can understand. So when we were looking at the proposal to change, we took a look at some of the benefits to it. This is an obvious one. If we can transition to this platform and save about $14,000 a year, I think that's a significant change that we should consider. We have asked for a 5-year agreement to lock in that price, but we still have the availability of asking to get out of the contract if we're not happy with that. And we have every intention of being very happy with this product. And then also we know from some of our colleagues in both Iowa and the metro area that they're finding success with this product. And so that's another reason why we are recommending this to you again for your consideration at the next board meeting on February 25th. Following that, if approved, we will develop an implementation and transition plan so that we get all the data ready and we let parents know that it's coming, communicate this spring that they can look for some change, and it really should be very smooth and seamless for them. And we will also prepare our staff who utilize these tools to be able to, we'll train them and be able to be proficient in them and the use of them come fall when we plan to go live.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Sounds like a no-brainer.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ostrowski.
Okay.
Our next presentation, I think I'm going to hand it over to one of our board members, Mr. LaFurla, to take on the next workshop meeting presentation on our annual summary from the Council Bluffs Schools Foundation.
Yeah, and I actually want to introduce Bridget Watson. She's the development director for the Council Bluffs Schools Foundation, and she's going to give us a little presentation.
Thank you, Chris. You took my first line, so that's good. I'm Bridget, Director of Development for the Council of Schools Foundation. I joined the foundation in May, so I'm fairly new to this gig, but I'm very happy to be here. So thanks for allowing me to come and tell you about what we've been doing. The Council of Schools Foundation was formerly known as the Community Education Foundation. Our mission is to provide financial resources and support for the children, families, and staff of the Council Bluffs Community School District. So the foundation opened its doors in 1991. By the way, Dean told me I had 2.5 minutes, so I promise I'm not going to give too much of a history. He was joking. So the foundation opened its doors in 1991 with the goal of providing a before and after school care program for working families. And now, nearly 30 years later, we have set a strategic vision for our programs and our supports, and we have aligned our priorities to meet the needs of the district. So tonight, I have the privilege of representing the foundation, but the truth is, I don't know everything about our programs, so I brought some people with me to help support me, mainly because I was super nervous. So this is Mia Lostrup. She is the director of the STARS Scholarship Program, and Greg Smith, director of Kids and Company. He's looking forward to your questions later. He told me that as well. So, oh, I'm supposed to be changing slides. 13. Also on our leadership team, Chris LaFurla, Executive Director. Do you all know him? Yes, okay, good, perfect. So for our board of directors, comprised of 11 members, we are so fortunate to have Diana Ostrowski, as well as Mark Schultz as board members, and then also Dr. Murillo as an ex officio member of our board. In total, the foundation has about 50 employees, which may surprise some people. Many of those employees work for Kids and Company. Okay. Oh, did I do something? Or you're good. Okay. Okay. So our foundation consists of 3 key areas of work at the foundation. It's programming, fundraising, and advocacy. Our programs include Kids and Company, Alumni and Friends, and the STARS Scholarship. Kids and Company is a school-age child care program that operates out of 10 elementary school buildings in the district. It is a licensed child care program through the Department of Human Services. And today, our program provides before and after school care for more than 850 students in support of working families in Council Bluffs. So, yes, it is a before and after school care program, but it's so much more than that, thanks to our partnership with the district. Because of our partnership, we're able to connect and understand the needs of our students, and then we respond. So for example, our Read and Feed program is a summer program developed to help address summer slide and food insecurity. So every Friday during the summer, students receive books to grow their at-home libraries, and also meal packs to take home over the weekend. This program would not be possible without the partnership of the district. The district supports us by preparing the meals that are sent home each Friday. We also receive grants from local and regional organizations to help fund that program. Kids and Company continues to grow and provides safe and convenient child care options for working families, and they remain focused on being committed partners to the district. So our Alumni and Friends Network is a great crossover between our fundraising and our advocacy areas. Our alumni of the district are some of our greatest supporters, and they tell our stories the best. Our Alumni and Friends Committee is comprised of highly motivated alumni and district supporters. The committee works hard to plan events, engage alumni, and cultivate support for the district. We have 2 key events each year, one being the Alumni and Friends Tailgate event, which happens at the AL versus TJ football game, and then the Blast from the Past Fundraiser, which is supported by our partners on the 100 block. So this year, the Alumni and Friends Tailgate was a huge success. We had over 250 attendees. There was free food, games, face painting, and live music. And this event is really just about engagement and community involvement, building relationships. This year, the Blast from the Past fundraiser will be held on Friday, April 24th. Friday, April 24th will be our Blast from the Past. So we hope you'll join us. The proceeds from this event, this is a fundraiser, the proceeds for this event will go to support our classroom grant fund. Our third program is the STARS Scholarship, which is an Iowa West Foundation initiative. It supports low-income adult parents in pursuit of college degrees or career training that lead to in-demand jobs that pay a livable wage. Star Scholarship has been around since 1997, and it has supported more than 400 families in Pottawatomie County. Each year, the Star Scholarship awards 50 eligible participants with up to $3,500 in scholarships for assistance for expenses beyond their educational bills. So Samantha Lee is a great example of what the program is designed to accomplish. When Samantha started the program in 2014, she was a single mother making $11 an hour to support herself and her family. She is now a special education teacher in the Council Bluffs Community School District, and she is working on pursuing her master's degree. So Samantha says that she could not have done it without the Star Scholarship. So it's a very cool story. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, I don't know much about those programs, but I do know about fundraising, and I know what we're doing with that. So thanks to Chris and his strategic vision and passion for making a difference, we are committed to living our mission and making an impact. We fundraise year-round, and we are continuously working to grow capacity in each impact area listed here. So thanks to our community of more than 650 donors, last year we awarded $60,000 to graduating seniors and provided more than $100,000 in support of student and staff recognition, professional development, classroom grants, early college academy, and also for students in need, so warm clothing, food, and other necessities. Last year, in addition to providing our annual support for those programs I just mentioned, we were honored to lead the fundraising efforts to renovate the lab spaces at both Abraham Lincoln and Thomas Jefferson High Schools, raising more than $2.3 million for what is now known as the Baruch and Christian Rosick Foundation TradeWorks Academy Learning Facilities. And then lastly, we just finished our first ever community impact campaign. It was a 6-week campaign that began on Giving Tuesday and ended in mid-January. Our goal was to raise $15,000, and we exceeded that goal. Yay. Again, this was in thanks in part to our partnership with the district. Daniel, he was up here earlier. Oh, he left. Daniel produced our video series showcasing the impact donations have on students, families, and staff. Those videos were shared on all of our communication platforms, from the website, e-newsletters, to our socials. And we are so thankful for those videos and for our partnership with the district and all that Daniel did to help us. So growing capacity in each of these impact areas is our goal. We couldn't do it without your support, so thank you very much for your support. Advocacy. So through our work in advocacy work, our goal is to inform the community of the incredible things our district is doing, cultivate support for public schools, and act as a conduit for building public partnerships. Our annual Education is Everyone's Business luncheon is one of the ways we pursue those goals. This year, our keynote speaker was Jamie Vollmer. His message centered around increasing support for people working in our public schools and encouraged the staff and community to work together to help all students get the education they need to succeed as adults. After the luncheon, we partnered with the district to continue delivering Jamie's message by sponsoring the Great Conversation video series, which I'm sure you all are very familiar with. The series is being shared with community members and district supporters. The overall message is that everyone has a vested interest in increasing student success, whether or not they have children in school. Advocacy is a relatively new area of focus for the foundation. We will continue to identify ways the foundation can effectively advocate for the school district and public education in general. All right, so in closing, I think I went over 2.5 minutes. I'm sorry, Dean. In closing, I want to share this video with you. This is Brandy Waller. She's our first ever Community Impact Award winner. Many of you may have seen this. Brandy is committed to bettering our community, thanks in part to the school district and influence from her teachers.
So what the Council School District is, usually there's a really
So again, Daniel produced that video for us. It's pretty awesome and impactful. You may be wondering how you can continue to support the foundation. The easiest way is to follow us on our socials and share our messages with your circles. Thank you for having me here tonight. Do you have any questions?
Questions from any of the board members?
I just want to say thank you to both you and to the foundation for all the hard work you do in the community, and I really appreciate it. I'm sure the board does as well. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much.
And that ends our reports.
Okay. This brings us to our resolution portion of our board meeting. We have one resolution that we need to dispense with tonight. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I move that the district request from School Budget Review Committee, MSA of $221,110 for lost Title I funding between the 2018 and 2019 school years.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So you put in here that we disagree with this. What, is this something that we think might come back to us then at a future time with some positive
Oh, no.
increase, or no, just
No.
gone?
It's gone. But what we can do is, I think now the state has on their radar, I think this is the first time the state had gone through a census report coming back so different. And my understanding is the state received that like in January and did not ask districts to help verify, which they have done this year, thinking that the federal government would self-correct because they knew some numbers didn't match up, and they did not, and then it was too late. So as you see, like the Title I-A money, the 70,000, they had to pull that money back together to try to help other districts kind of balance out money that they had lost. These are dollars that we use for schools that would have been labeled needs improvement targeted, and the other was just the basic level. All of the dollars that come through on the federal is a per pupil allocation and is a per pupil off of a certain set of criteria. So we believe that it will balance out. We should never see this kind of dip again, and many other districts are also requesting this funding.
So if we do better and better at educating children and providing resources, they're doing better, will that hurt us in funding going forward
Yes.
annually?
Not, it shouldn't. I mean, we wouldn't have the Title I-A school improvement money.
Right.
But as we continue, this right here, the Title I basic is not about achievement, it's poverty.
Yeah.
If there are no further questions, we'll move to the vote. Before us, we have a resolution to request the School Budget Review Committee increase of money from lost through Title I funds. Mr. Wilson, would you please call the roll?
And I've opened up online voting. Mr. Arthur,
Yes.
Mr. LaFurther,
Yes.
Ms. Shudek,
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. Kazire.
Yes, and the motion has been approved. Before we adjourn tonight, at our work session, we talked about what we as a board need to do to help our new members be onboarded. And so we had conversations with Ms. Shudak so that we can help her be successful in her position as a board member, but not just her success, but members of all members on the school board so that we can all be successful. And so we're looking at possibly changing some of our board policies that will encourage us to look at more thoroughly what new board members would need to be successful in their position, as well as having a continuing education continuum so that we can, as a board, encourage future boards to be those boards that are constantly learning and constantly helping their members to be successful. So as we travel along this the journey of what it looks like to be a successful board, we're going to find things that we need to do to help each other along the way. So with that, we will continue our endeavor to be a learning board, and that we will adjourn until the next time we meet. Thank you.